Welcome to Critical DMG, a podcast about two best friends who might have grown up but never grew out of their love for the Game Boy. We will be playing and reviewing every North American title released on Nintendo's original handheld console. This is episode 3. I'm Tony, and I could have sworn that this was going to be a bowling game.
And I'm Jeff, and today we're going to continue our journey through the launch titles for the Game Boy, and we're going to be talking about Alleyway. Before we get into it, Tony, can you remind us of our previous quiz question?
Sure. So the Super Mario Land quiz question for everybody playing along at home is that we see some continuity between the Game Boy Mario games once we get to Super Mario Land 2 sometime in the nebulous future. And the reason for that is one of the bosses from the original Super Mario Land makes a reappearance in Super Mario Land 2. And which boss was that? It's Tatanga. The final boss from Super Mario Land 1 is a boss in one of the stages in Super Mario Land 2. So we will get to kick his butt a second time somewhere down the road.
I was definitely thinking it was the boss from World 2. I vaguely remember there being like a seahorse in Super Mario Land 2. I had half a mind to go ahead and jump ahead and start playing some, but I didn't. I definitely would have gotten that one wrong as well. I'm not doing too well on the listener questions.
No, you got a good track record on the quiz for yourself, but the listener question comes around, and I think you're 0 for 3.
Yeah, I'm 0 for 2 right now. Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go.
I have not gotten one correct. But Tatanga, we will meet you again. With that, let's dive into our discussion on Alleyway. So, your immediate opinion. Would you recommend someone to play this game?
Yes, I think that I would.
Interesting. I'm a hard no. So we'll get into that a little bit later, I guess. So yeah, give us a little bit of an overview or kind of a back of the box read.
I love the back of the box read. Alleyway. Interstellar ping pong with a deadly energy ball. That's sure a start. Your spaceship is at the gate of the alleyway. Use your vessel to repel the energy ball. Atomize space grids with your return shots. Destroy the entire field and move on to even more challenging targets. You're in command in the alleyway. Which I think is especially hilarious, considering that the entire game is just done up with Mario graphics.
That is extremely epic.
Very hardcore.
For the gameplay we're about to talk about. Essentially, it's a Breakout clone.
Yes. Not going to bury the lead here.
Nope. Just like Tetris, I imagine anyone listening has probably played a game that is similar to this. If not exactly this or Breakout itself, it's a very common game of you have a paddle breaking blocks. And we'll get a little bit more into that discussion in a little bit, but a very epic box. They were selling it hard. All right. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we dive into some of the gameplay and mechanics?
I think this one is going to be pretty threadbare. So I think similar to our coverage for Tetris, this one, even though it does have a bespoke name, is sort of a you know it when you see it.
Yeah, it did add some mechanics, which we'll get into, but basically 100% what you just said. So without further ado, let's get into the mechanics. All right. So how far did you get into the game? Did you beat the game?
I have not beaten it yet. I will definitely be revisiting until I do beat it. I wanted to do sort of a 1 credit clear and see how far I could go without stopping. I wanted to just go on the lives that I started with, any that I was able to get extra, and if I lost, I lost, just because I knew I've played a Breakout before. I was probably going to be pretty okay at this one, and I didn't want to grind through it to get to, I believe it's 40 levels, 30 or 40 levels at the end of the thing. I didn't want to try to push all the way to the end on the first go around, but without spoiling too much of the how I felt about it, I enjoyed this one enough that I will probably play it just for my own sake, my own enjoyment.
Interesting. Yeah, so I played it a couple times through. The highest I got was to stage 12, which is the halfway point. So there are 24 full stages, and then there are 8 bonus stages that are not counted in, I guess, your stage count. So
okay, that was my mistake then. That's why I thought that there was a higher total stage number.
Yeah, there's 32 total, but 24 numbered stages. My score was just over 3,000, and that one, from 0 to stage 12 took me around 40 minutes. I think you were playing a little bit quicker than I was, but took me around 40 minutes to get there.
I lost and got my game over at stage 9, and I think it probably took me somewhere in the ballpark of about 20 minutes, maybe, yeah.
So, yeah, about an hour and a half to 2 hours for a full clear seems about right. Before I get into a little bit more in depth of the mechanics, I kind of wanted to get your opinion on how did you like them? How clear did you feel everything was as you were playing?
From a strictly mechanical perspective, not getting into any of the game feel or what I thought about the sound or the way that it looked, just how did it come across to me as a breakout clone? I think it controlled pretty well. I think that even though the ball doesn't have a super wide range of motion, I was never ever thinking that I felt too confined. The only time I would say that anything really felt like it was rubbing me the wrong way mechanically was whenever I only had one brick left. No matter how good I thought I was doing, when it came down to only a single brick left, it felt like I was looping the ball over and over again, trying to just hit that one remaining brick. And it was all smooth sailing up until that point. And that was really the only time that kind of bristled me, but everything else felt pretty okay, pretty good.
Agreed. Yeah, I had the same experience when there was a single brick left. Apparently, they have some mechanics and some ways to prevent kind of an infinite loop with the ball. Mm-hmm. So even if you were to try to do that, I guess there are some ways where it changes the speed and that changes the trajectory a little bit and things like that. So you can't get into an infinite loop, but especially when there was one brick left, it kind of felt like it. It felt like it dragged on quite a bit. You mentioned the ball kind of has limited movement. You're right. It only moves at a 15, 30, or 45 degree angle. So it really has only those 3 trajectories that it can shoot off in. Mm-hmm. Basic gameplay, very simple. You have a paddle that you control with left and right. A ball is bouncing up and down, and you're trying to bounce it up into bricks and clear all of the bricks at the top of the screen. Each, I guess, round, it's kind of split up into 3-stage increments. So you have your initial stage, which is typically a new layout for each, stage 1, stage 4, etc. Stage 2 will be a similar layout to that, but it's moving left and right. And then stage 3 will be, again, a similar layout, but the tiles drop periodically. So they get closer to the paddle as you're going. At stage 6, that tile dropping will repeat. So stage 3, it drops and there are just unbreakable bricks up top. It's pretty straightforward of what you would be thinking about when the tiles drop.
The drop ceiling legitimately jump scared me the first time that it happened. I don't know what I was necessarily expecting, but in the first stage where the ceiling drops, I was focused on just knocking the bricks out with my ball and paying attention to what I was doing. So when the ceiling dropped and made the clunk sound it does when it comes down, it actually got me.
So every third stage after stage 6, it's not a solid top. There are hidden blocks above the screen. And so when it starts dropping, you have additional blocks that you have to clear. It only happens to essentially twice. So you'll have to kind of clear the level twice. Mm-hmm. the first time I played stage 6, I did not realize that. And I thought it was just going to continue on forever.
Me too.
And it kind of felt daunting. You know, I felt like I was up against this time barrier where I had to clear all of the blocks before it dropped again.
Me too. I was not aware that it was just that's the way the level was happening. And I think I even remember saying to you before recording the episode that it felt like it never was going to end. I was waiting for the blocks to stop so that I could make sure the level was clear, and it just kept going.
Exactly. And eventually it does stop. Eventually there are no more that it drops. But especially with kind of that mechanic that we were talking about earlier, where when you have one single block left, it's really hard to get a good trajectory and to kind of aim, you know, the ball the correct way. And so when those two things combined, it felt like I'm just going to be on this level forever. This stage 6 is the end because I'm never going to clear it in time. It does stop, so it's not that bad. But going into it blind, that was definitely a weird, like I said, kind of like an anxious portion where I was like, I'm not getting past this stage. Another thing that I think you mentioned to me and had a similar experience. Stage 4, randomly, your paddle got small. How was your reaction to that?
Emotionally, I hated it. It always made me mad because I thought that I was doing pretty good. And so the level just socking me in the gut with the paddle getting smaller, I didn't understand why it was happening, and it felt like it was punishing me for doing a good job. So I didn't like that it happened, but mechanically, I don't know that I really noticed that it made me any worse at the game. I was definitely not losing my ball because my paddle was suddenly smaller. If I was losing the ball, usually it was because I was unfocused and I just didn't move in time or whatever. But the paddle being smaller didn't really seem to have a huge consequence on my gameplay. So ultimately, it didn't really bother me. But the way that it felt in the game, where it felt like I was being punished for doing a good job or for hitting the highest levels of the block arena, that I didn't like. And I don't know if that was intended, but that's definitely how it felt.
So this is a mechanic that I don't like. Because starting on stage 4, if the ball hits the ceiling, your paddle gets shorter once.
Oh, so it is the ceiling specifically.
Yes.
Okay.
If it hits the ceiling, the paddle gets shorter. It doesn't continually get shorter, but the first time it hits the ceiling, it gets shorter until either you beat the level or until the ball passes below your paddle and you have to use another life. So those are the two things that'll get the paddle back to the same starting length. But yeah, I don't like that mechanic because I agree with you. It's unavoidable. So it's not something that you could just, play better and not have it happen. And it feels bad to have a punishment. It feels like you're playing correctly. You're clearing the blocks, or in these games, I feel like it's always the goal to kind of scoot it along the wall, get it to bounce between the top of the bricks and the ceiling. And, that feels good. That feels good in these games. And when you're getting punished for doing that, I didn't like that. I agree with you. I don't think it drastically increased the difficulty, but I didn't find it fun. I didn't find it a fun mechanic.
Brick breaking games I enjoy. I've played plenty of them. And so I came to Alleyway with some preconceived notions, maybe about what I was to expect from it. And one of those things that I was expecting was something along the lines of power-ups, or something like making the paddle bigger or giving you a multi-ball or something like that. For there to not only not be any power-ups, which already, was kind of disappointing, I'm not going to lie about it. Not only were there not power-ups, the only real change to your paddle or to the gameplay from any of the interactions that you have with the board that you're bouncing the ball around on is a punishment, is making your paddle smaller for what is essentially either good play, especially if you get on a run when the ball is just like bouncing up and down and, in between the rows and things like that. That feels like good gameplay that you're being punished for. Or, like you said, it feels like an inevitability. If all that's left are a few bricks and you're going to hit the ceiling constantly, it's unavoidable that they're going to make the paddle shrink. And I just don't understand why. Again, it doesn't feel like a big mechanical difference, but I don't know. It
feels bad.
Mm-hmm. And so I don't know why it's there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I believe this is my first time actually playing Alleyway. I've played clones of it for sure, clones of Breakout.
Sure.
It does have 3 different colored blocks, which do matter. The white blocks, which are typically on the bottom, do nothing. Essentially, they increase your score. Then the gray blocks increase the speed of the ball a little bit. And then the black blocks increase slightly more. So the 3 colors do matter, but it's not like in a lot of the clones where they have special blocks that might drop something or anything like that. So I agree. That was a letdown for me.
I think that, and maybe this is something that I didn't pay as much attention to in the Tetris episode. I can see that the novelty of having a Breakout clone on something that you can put in your pocket and take with you definitely colors how the game was developed, the kind of things that were in there, how anybody might have felt about playing what is, essentially sort of a stripped down Breakout clone, calling it what it is. But now, being where we are and coming to this game, having played plenty of other Breakout clones with lots of other bells and whistles and things that change up the gameplay, I was really only able to sort of look at this one from, if you want to play a game like this and you want to do it on the Game Boy because you want to have a Game Boy in your hands to play this game, then there is definitely something to be said for that.
At the time, while I don't think the reception was great, definitely not as good as Tetris and Super Mario Land, it did add to Breakout. It wasn't strictly a clone or a straight copy. It did add kind of the different levels, the moving blocks and things like that I don't think were featured in the original Breakout.
Okay.
One of the things it did add were the bonus levels. Personally, they were one of my favorite aspects, but how did you like the bonus levels?
I think that they were an okay replacement for the lack of power-ups. The way that the bonus levels work is that you are able to hit the ball with the paddle, and then instead of bouncing off all of the bricks, the ball just goes straight through them. So obviously they were able to do that. So it would have been nice for that to be like a power that you could get in the main game. But barring that, I do at least like that the bonus levels offer up a little bit of a variety to the regular gameplay.
Exactly. So the bonus levels are every 4th stage, I guess. So after stage 3, you have a bonus level. The mechanics are a little bit different, but the main reason for them is to increase your score. Because every 1,000 points, you get an extra paddle. You get an extra life. It's either timed, so you get so much time, or if the ball, again, goes below the paddle, you lose, but you don't lose a life on the bonus level. So if either of those two things happen, the bonus level will end, but you'll keep all the points and you won't lose a life. So it's strictly upside for the bonus levels. And yeah, I agree. I think they were fine. It's kind of more of the same gameplay with a slight tweak. I did find a lot of the same issues of once I got down to just a few blocks left, it was very hard to hit those. And it being on a timer just kind of added a little bit more frustration with that. But overall, the bonus levels were, I think, a good inclusion and a good way to just add a little bit of score to get some bonus lives.
I agree.
I'm also curious, how often, or if at all, did you use the A and the B button to speed up and slow down your paddle.
I literally didn't know that was a thing that you could do until after I had already finished playing.
Okay. Yeah, so if you hold B as you're holding it, the paddle will slow down. If you hold A as you're holding it, the paddle will increase. I spent most of my time in kind of the slow B mode. I just found it easier to position the paddle. Before I started doing that, I found a lot of the time I was overshooting, and I would try to make a small adjustment and I would overshoot.
If I had known, I would have probably made use of the speed up and slow down of the paddle movement. But like I said, I did not even know that was a function of the game until after I had already concluded and went through and just looking up facts and manual and stuff like that. For this episode, I saw that was a thing. I was like, oh, that probably would have been helpful to know.
Yeah, I feel like it was nice because, yeah, I think I played through a couple times with not looking up any of the mechanics. And I think that's how I'm going to approach the majority of the games we play, is I'm going to try to go in completely blind.
Sure.
And just experience it as, I would have as a kid, because I guess I could have read the manuals, and all of this is covered in the manuals. I guess I could have read the manuals as a kid, but I never did. I just wanted to play the game. So
sure.
Once, I would open the game on the way home from Toys R Us or wherever it was, I would flip through the manual, mainly looking at the pictures on the way home. And then once I got home, I would play the game, and that would be it. So I'm going to try to go into most games with that.
That's fair.
So I guess the last kind of mechanic that I wanted to speak about, at least, was you have to play this all the way through in one go. There is no saving, no passwords, no continue button. When you lose a run, you have to start from the beginning. And I think that's something that we'll see a lot more in the earlier games than we will in the later games. But always something that I've never really loved.
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that could be a limitation in the actual hardware of the cartridge and things like that, right?
A lot of it is holdover from the arcade.
Okay.
Because, the way that arcades were set up and how they needed you to feed them quarters to keep them running, so there weren't like saves or anything really in those types of games. The unfortunate reality of any of the early consoles is that a lot of those games were designed with the same sort of mindset of how will we deliver whatever the experience is within the confines of the hardware that we have and still make sure that people are getting their money's worth or their time out of it that they are expecting in the way that they maybe previously would. And for this game, the fact that the levels are so short and the amount of levels also are so few. So if you were proficient at a game like this, then you would probably be able to clear it in, probably like an hour, maybe less than that. I haven't looked to see what speedrun times for something like this are, but I'm sure that they're probably pretty fast. Maybe it could have been this is an early launch game on the Game Boy. We don't know how saves are going to function yet, so let's just not worry about it right now. Or it could have been we don't want people to beat the game too fast, so don't give them any way to continue. They have to beat it all in one go. Because if you'll remember, in Tetris, you could input your name for your score, and it would remember, I want to say, like 6 or 8 names for each mode for the different high scores. There was definitely some sort of save data functionality in those early cartridges. It's just difficult to say why it wasn't in this one in particular.
Yeah, I think you probably hit it straight on with the callback to the arcade. Breakout is an arcade game. That's what they were shooting for, and that's what they did. You had to be good enough to do it all in one go, or you didn't see the fanfare at the end.
One credit clear.
Yep. All right. That's kind of all I have for the mechanical section. Is there anything you want to add?
I don't think so. I think the only thing that stuck out to me mechanically, other than the things that we already covered, was that when the blocks would be pushed down as the roof was traveling downward, once they reach a certain threshold, it didn't seem like I had to actually hit them with my ball. They would just disappear on their own. Did you notice that too?
Yes, that is a feature. So I believe once it gets to 10 blocks above the paddle, they will disappear. You don't get points for those, but you don't have to clear them. So they will. I actually had one level that ended because it went below and the last 2 blocks just cleared themselves. So the level ended. I didn't get points, but was not penalized either.
Oh.
But yeah, that is a mechanical feature.
That's pretty generous of them, actually, because I would think that in a lot of the Brick Break games, when something like that happens, if the bricks continue to go down, it would be more of like a Space Invaders kind of rule where, oh no, the blocks have reached beyond their threshold. That's a loss. Got to do it again.
Yeah, it feels generous. Yeah, I was happy with that mechanic.
Okay, yeah, I think that about does it for me then.
Then with that, I think we'll take a quick ad break and we'll be right back.
Ad break. Can't seem to clear any lines in your Tetris? Stuck underwater in Super Mario Land? The old Pokemon grind got you feeling blue? Then stay tuned to Critical DMG. It won't make you better at Game Boy games, but at least you won't feel so alone in how bad you are at them once you've listened to us. Users must provide their own Game Boy. Batteries not included. Certain conditions apply. Void where prohibited. Critical DMG is not responsible for any worsening gameplay after consuming our podcast. You know, the original Game Boy might not have been internet connected, but we sure are. So if you'd like to reach out to us, you could find us on Blue Sky at criticaldmgpod.bsky.social, or you could email us at criticaldmgpod@gmail.com, and either of those will get to us faster than you would expect for people who are stuck on tech from the 1990s. And we're back. Back for Alleyway Aesthetic Appraisal. How do you like that for alliteration? So this is a part of our discussion of the game at hand where I'm going to talk about all of the pretty and cute things that are in this game, like all of the Mario references. I love the bonus levels being Mario's bad guys and also Mario. And I love that Mario's head is your little life counter.
Yeah, so that was I think one of my highlights of the game were the bonus levels.
Oh, for
little
sure.
Mario running out in the beginning and jumping in the paddle, which is, a spaceship. The bricks creating oversized pixel art of different characters. Yeah, Mario, Goombas, the host of kind of critters from that. I liked it. Like I said, I think that was one of my highlights of the game.
Oh, for sure. And I think that they were just really, really pushing Mario for the Game Boy, because apart from Tetris, which I don't think really has any Mario anything in it at all, basically all of the rest of the launch titles that we're going to talk about, so Alleyway, obviously Super Mario Land, tennis, baseball, all of those games feature Mario either in the artwork or in the game in some fashion. And I just think that that's so charming.
Yeah, and one of the things that, I had seen, I guess in the original art for the box, it was just a random unidentified person. And then for the international releases, so, Europe, US, etc., they changed it to Mario, and I'm sure that's it. I'm sure they were trying to get a bit more brand recognition and cross promotion going on with that.
Oh, for sure. So, apart from the adorable Mario inclusions in this game, another thing that I really liked was the sound design. So I think the opening jingle for the game is very cute. There's not like a huge amount of music that is in the game, honestly, at all. But the jingle at the very beginning, when you first boot the cart up, is cute. I do like it. But what really sells me on the sound design for this game, which I think is really important for a brick breaking game in particular, is that all of the sounds when your ball is bouncing off of the bricks are really kind of musical. They're not grating, they're not harsh, they're not annoying to hear. And when you get on a run and your ball is really bouncing across multiple bricks, up and down the layers, on the roof, touching the different colors of bricks that make different sounds, it almost is really musical in the way that it kind of blends all the sounds together. And it makes you want to get those big runs and combos where the ball will get stuck in a corner and bounce off 10 or 12 bricks in a row before it comes back to you, because it makes a really pleasing series of noises. And I love that.
Interesting. So I played it over a couple of different days, and the first day I played it, intro music, I was like, okay, this is nice. And then get into level 1 and there's no music. You only get the sounds of the ball bouncing.
Mm-hmm.
The only stages that have music are the bonus stages.
Mm-hmm.
The first day, I muted it and I just turned on my own music because I was not a fan, especially when it was bouncing really quickly between, the ceiling and the top row or something like that. I was not a fan of that.
Interesting.
So yeah, the first time I played it for this, I ended up muting and just throwing on some lo-fi or something in the background.
Oh, wow.
The most recent time, I did not do that. I listened, and it didn't annoy me outright to where I wanted to mute it,
Mm-hmm.
but I did find myself constantly wanting something else, music or something to listen to while playing. So
I could see that.
I guess a little bit of a disagreement there, because yeah, I really didn't find it audibly pleasing, but I can definitely see what you're saying.
I agree that I wish that there was music. I think that the fact that something like Tetris, which also has its own bespoke sounds that you are hearing a lot, like over and over, sometimes rapidly, as you are stacking the blocks, the tetrominoes, and making your lines, you're hearing those noises, but they don't really ever overtake the music. They sort of are just underneath it because they're not really, first of all, they're not really very high pitched. They're not like metallic or anything. They sound like, and I think we mentioned this in the Tetris episode, they sound like clacking board game tiles and, like a wavy kind of low pitched sound when you get rid of a line. And so it blends in with the music, but I can see how not having music and only hearing the noises like you do in Alleyway could make them stand out if you don't really like those sounds and have them be more, like grating or annoying. But I do wonder, if there was music, would they have to change the sounds because they would clash with whatever music that they were making, and they would have to make the sounds something more muted, or if they would just leave it alone and it would be a big mess. Because I do think that they are pleasing to me. Like, I understand that that's just a subjective thing on the sounds about what someone prefers versus what I prefer, what I find is a pleasing noise. I think they are very like tinkly and lightly metallic in a way that I just do find pleasing, but I can see how having music could make them more palatable.
Obviously, my take is not a definitive take on this, but I actually put on music before I muted. It was lo-fi, so it wasn't extremely, it was background music.
Sure, it was underneath what you were doing anyway.
Exactly, and I didn't like it, so I ended up just muting the game and just listening to the music. So I do think I could definitely see a world where the sounds would have had to change if there was music, because, when it's the beginning of the game where it's just one block, paddle, one block, I don't think that would be an issue. But specifically yeah, when you have those times where it's just bouncing around like crazy, I think that would be audibly messy if there were music as well.
Yeah, I think that we can agree on that. Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else that I wanted to cover about this? The biggest things were definitely the use of the Mario stuff. Another little note that I have about the Mario inclusion is that I liked that the Mario head that they used for your extra lives, and maybe this is just me, because I know pixel art kind of might look different to different people in sort of a artistic interpretation kind of way, but the Mario head sprite for the lives makes Mario look shifty. It's something about the eyes. I don't know if you saw that too, or if it's just me. But what's your opinion on that?
I want to pull it up and look, but I did not. I did not notice. Let me see if I can pull up a screenshot real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. See if you can get a screenshot or something and find out, because I want to know if it's just me. You know, it was just how I was looking at it, but it really makes it like a shifty eye Mario.
Right, I'm just pulling it up.
Oh yeah, live on air.
Right. While I'm doing that, I did have a question. You said you got to stage 9?
I did. Yes, stage 9. And then I ran out of lives.
How did you feel about stage 8? Kind of in line with a topic we had discussed in Super Mario. I felt like it was a little hard on the eyes. Not as bad as the waterfall, but it was a little hard on the eyes, in my opinion.
I know that this is wishful thinking, because I already play enough Game Boy games to know that this is wishful thinking, but I really wish that the Super Mario Land waterfall was going to be one of the worst Flash experiences that we were going to have on this journey of ours, but I know that it's not. So I'm glad it at least wasn't that bad. I think that the fact that the blocks were, one, in different colors, they weren't in like different patterns. They themselves weren't moving in any kind of animated way, and they were just in different dark, medium, and then light colors, helped it to not be that bad. And then I also think the speed at which they are moving helps to make it not as bad either. If either of those two things were different, if either the tiles animated, even just in the same like simple 2-frame animation like the waterfall did, or if the horizontal movement of the tiles was faster, you know, around the level or from side to side or whatever, I think if either of those things were true, or God forbid both of those things were true, I would be of the same opinion. But I don't know that it was really all that bad here. Or at least I didn't notice it as bad.
I definitely agree. It was one of those, the stage started and it almost was a little bit of a flashbang, or kind of like took me back a little bit. But then once I started playing, it was fine, and definitely not. I agree, definitely not as bad. Also, checked out the Mario sprite. Yeah, it's a little shifty. I don't know exactly what it is about it, but it's a little shifty.
I don't know what's going on. It's just, I swear, it's something about the eyes in the way that they did the sprite, and it makes it look like Mario is given like the side eye to whatever's going on. And it's like, Mario, you're in that ship. What are you doing?
That, and I think his mustache looks like it curls up, which is uncommon. So I don't know if that was it at all, or it as well, but I agree. Definitely looks a little interesting.
Maybe it wasn't Mario, actually.
This was actually the debut of Wario. We just didn't notice.
Yeah, it wasn't Super Mario Land 2 where Wario showed up. It was actually this the whole time, and Nintendo just wants you to forget.
I did have one final kind of aesthetic question.
Oh, yes, please.
And I'm wondering if you think it was, I guess, why you think it was. So the bonus levels, like we said, you could either end it the normal way with the ball going below the paddle. And typically when that happens, the ball kind of like explodes and there's like a little explosion graphic and, you know, yay. Did you notice on the bonus levels, if you run out of time, you will still get that explosion animation, but it will be directly below where the ball is. So if the ball is, you know, midway on the screen, kind of directly below it, where it would normally show up if it went below the paddle, you still get the explosion, but the ball is not there. Did you notice that while playing?
I did, yeah. I think that I never managed to beat any of the bonus levels, so I always had either time run out or my ball, go past the threshold. But yeah, I definitely noticed that when the time ran out, the explosion would still be there, even though the ball was still, miles away up at the top of the screen or whatever, and it would just pop up at the bottom of the screen. It was very cheesy. I'm sure that's definitely just a relic of very early Game Boy game, potentially rushed into production. They weren't 100% certain on what they would be able to do with the hardware, all those sorts of things that go into early Game Boy game development sort of deal. I can't make any definitive claims about it, but yeah, it's one of those things where you see it, but for it to happen when your ball definitely didn't go beneath the threshold and you've just run out of time, just kind of, it kind of made me smile and think like, you could have done probably anything else. Like you could have just had the screen fade to black or something. Why did it have to be that? And it's probably just it was probably just easier to do that using whatever code they already had to make the explosion show up when your ball went past the threshold and it needed to explode. Just slap it on in there. Oh, where's the ball located? This Y coordinate? Put that explosion in there at the bottom.
Yeah, that was my assumption as well. It does feel a little unpolished in today's lens, but yeah, the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, did that really just happen? But again, kind of remembering, the era and all of that, it was just kind of a funny little thing that I wondered if you noticed as well.
I did. I'm sure that even as things go on and we start getting into the more well-developed and feature-rich games in the library, I'm sure that stuff is just going to continue to happen. It's inescapable, even in today's day and age, when developers are making wildly feature-rich, complex games and stuff like that. Things happen. Humans are responsible for doing this sort of stuff. Mistakes will be made. Corners will be cut. That's just the development experience. There's no way around it.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that covers us for our discussion of Alleyway. So, before we move on to what I am sure is going to rapidly become my favorite portion of the program, do we want to do a little revisit on our initial recommendations, since that one was definitely another we are not making the same recommendation here.
Yeah, let's do it. So you go first, since you're the one who said yes. You go first. Let's start on a positive.
I like these kinds of games. I know that I said in the Tetris episode that I did not recommend Tetris on the Game Boy because you could play Tetris a bunch of different ways, and I didn't necessarily feel that the Game Boy Tetris offered anything in particular other than the fact that you would be able to play it on the Game Boy if that is important to you or your gaming experience like it is for me. Like, I can understand that it might sound a little hypocritical of me to recommend Alleyway in that it is just a breakout clone on the Game Boy, but I do feel that while Tetris on the Game Boy doesn't necessarily offer to me anything special about it being on the Game Boy, but one thing that I think gives Alleyway the edge is that Mario inclusion. I really think that, especially if you are a fan of these kinds of games, this is good, runs smoothly, and the fact that the Mario inclusion is there means that you get a cute little artwork or a fun little nod to the Mario games that you know and love from the Game Boy and other Nintendo consoles in this game, and that kind of goes a long way for me because it really makes this entry feel like a game on the Game Boy. It's got Mario in weird ways, similar to how Super Mario Land has Mario doing things that you would not normally find him doing in what you consider a Mario game. And that sort of thing to me really makes the Game Boy sort of sing. Yeah, I was sort of mulling it over as we were going along with the episode, wondering how I was going to sort of settle on this after the discussion, which is why I had said I think I recommend it at the opening of the episode. But yeah, I think after everything being said and done, I am still positive enough on Alleyway to say this is a game that you should play on the Game Boy, especially if you are a fan of these types of games.
I do find it a little bit interesting because I feel like we're both almost flipped from our takes on Tetris.
Yeah.
Obviously our opinion, but then also kind of the rationale behind it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So playing this, I realized I don't like these kind of games. I feel like it has a very steep difficulty curve. It goes from being boring to, in my opinion, not fun difficult way too quickly. And I think the thing that I like about when I've played these games recently, Breakout clones recently, are the power-ups, all of those things. When you get the ball stuck in a corner and then it hits a power-up block and then you have like 10 balls flying everywhere. And that is the kind of thing that I like when I'm playing this game. And because this didn't have that, it felt less fun to me. And then it also didn't have the nostalgia that Tetris had for me. So to me, if you want to play the OG game, play Breakout. This is not it. But I can definitely understand your sentiment that Mario does add a novelty to this, or something is a new offering or a different offering specific to this game, that I could understand that being a reason to play it.
This is and I know it's only the third episode, but this is the first episode that I don't have any sort of previous experience. I've played Breakout, sure, but I've never played Alleyway. I'd played Tetris on the Game Boy. I've played Super Mario Land. This game I had no nostalgic attachment or previous experience with or anything else, so I was going into it completely blind, not knowing all of the Mario trappings and everything that were in it. So to come off of it still thinking that it is worth playing, even though I have no nostalgia for it or anything else like that, I think is probably good. I like that we haven't necessarily shaken out at the end of this to be like, no, I think we both are on the right track and we can agree to disagree on Alleyway for the Game Boy. It's like, no, I think after we're all said and done, I do still like it, you don't, and that's okay. That should be the takeaway for everyone listening.
Exactly. If you like this type of game and like Mario, hands down play it. If you don't.
Quiz time.
All right, let's see. I think I'm doing all right now, so hopefully I can continue with that.
We have got to make that chart. We got to get it in the chart.
I'll make a spreadsheet.
Okay. Are we ready for Alleyway quiz question 1?
I'm ready. I'm interested to see what questions you came up with.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a toughie. The first two were way easier. There was a lot more to dig into, so I hope that I got some good ones for this game. So here we go. Question 1. Despite being a pretty simple game, all things considered, Alleyway had some things that were planned but not actually implemented for one reason or another. Which of these cut features was originally going to be in the game, but was cut due to difficulties in programming or some other developmental issue? A fast forward button to speed up the game's time clock. B, a multiplayer mode using the link cable. C, alternate sprite designs for the player's paddle. Or D, a special mode where the player could leave the paddle and attack blocks directly.
Ooh. As I was playing, I hoped this feature, I kept thinking, man, I really want this feature. So I'm going to say A was the fast forward button. Is that correct?
Yeah, like to speed up the game overall, yes, would be what I was describing.
All right. I kept wanting that, especially at the beginning of stages. So I'm going to say A, final answer.
A, final answer. It's B. In a developer interview, information was revealed that a multiplayer mode was planned, and it even included a special paddle controller to be used with it somehow. I don't really know how that would have worked, but it was ultimately scrapped, and they decided not to go with it. From what I read, it was a difficulty thing. The Nintendo programmers weren't really keen on trying to get that feature in there, but a prototype was made and ultimately scrapped.
So was it like Pong, where the ball would just go back and forth? Or would you play... Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I only saw... like I said, information, like extra lore type information for Alleyway was pretty slim from what I was able to find, but there was a interview with one of the developers, but it was a sort of retrospective interview on his career. So this Alleyway information was basically just like a couple lines in one paragraph toward the end. So
interesting.
There really wasn't a whole lot of information about it, but there is code in the game, which I found on the cutting room floor, which is an amazing resource for all kinds of game minutia. There was code left in Alleyway that shows there was at least partially developed implementation for this special paddle controller that they had been prototyping.
Interesting. Yeah, I probably should have known it wasn't fast forward because they already kind of had a fast forward button. Also, they were out of buttons. Anyway. All right, I need to get the next two right.
Question 2. Alleyway, as we actually talked about in the mechanical section, has very limited angles on how the ball can bounce. No matter how you catch it on the paddle, it can only bounce at either 15, 30, or 45 degrees. Similarly, the ball can only reach your paddle at one angle when it's launched every round. What angle is that? A, 60 degrees, B, 45 degrees, C, 30 degrees, or D, 15 degrees.
Yeah, this one's B, 45 degrees. Easy.
It is B, 45 degrees, yeah. I had a feeling you probably, as soon as you started talking about it in the mechanics section, I was like, he probably already knows the answer to this one.
Yeah, I think I actually remember reading that as well, but then just playing, if you know that those are the angles... Yeah, thinking back to the start of each level, so confident on that one. That's good.
Yeah, no matter where you are on the screen, no matter where you position your paddle on the screen when you launch, the ball will always come to your paddle at 45 degrees down.
Yep.
All right, so you are 1-1. You ready for your final question?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I know we talked about how the bonus levels look like Mario enemies. But, of course, they can't all have representation in the few bonus levels that were in the game. So, which of these enemies from the NES Super Mario Bros. Is not one of the bonus levels in Alleyway? Is it A, a piranha plant, B, a bullet bill, C, a hammer bro, or D, a blooper?
There has to be a blooper. The blooper is the, jellyfish, right?
Yeah, it's like the white squid with the black mask.
Yeah, there has to be one of those. This is where I'm getting punished for not playing through the entire game. A bullet bill seems easy to add. I feel like there's no way there's a hammer bro. I'm gonna go with C, hammer bro.
C, final answer. It's C.
Let's go. Whew, that was a flat out guess. Yeah, I feel like the other ones were, I could just envision them in that kind of style. The hammer bro, I feel like would have been harder, but
all of the rest of them are here. So yeah, there is a piranha plant, a bullet bill, a blooper. All of those are in the game. The hammer bro is not. Some of the other enemies, because there aren't really that many enemies in the original NES Super Mario Bros. Game, so some of the other enemies from that game that are not here are a Spiny, which is the little orange spiky shell guy, a Buzzy Beetle, which is the little crawly guy with the dark black or blue shell, and then Lakitu.
Oh, Lakitu.
Yep, so none of those are in here as bonus levels. You've maintained your 2 out of 3.
All right.
You're safe for another week.
I'll get a spreadsheet going so we can have a proper tally.
All right. So that's it for your questions. But what about the audience's question?
Let's hear it.
So for that one this week, we have, while you don't start with too many lives in Alleyway, you only get 4 to start the game with. You do get rewarded with a new one for every 1,000 points that you increase your score by while playing. But that only happens as long as you don't already have maximum lives, which would be 9, and if your total score isn't over what number?
Ooh, I know this one. I almost said this in the episode, so I'm glad I held my tongue.
Haha, nice. I was going to say, that I had that worry a couple different times because these ones are particularly mechanical compared to some of the more out there questions that the rest of them have been. But yes, you will get an extra life for every 1,000 points unless you already have the maximum amount of lives or your score is above this certain number. So what is the total score that you are allowed to have before you are no longer eligible to get extra lives in Alleyway on the Game Boy? And we will find out the answer to that one on next week's episode.
Yes, we will. Thanks for listening to Critical DMG. If you would like to support us further, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts and maybe recommend us to your friends or anyone else you know who might like the show. It really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. That brings us to an end of our episode on Alleyway. Join us next week when we talk about tennis.
I'm going to potentially jinx us here. I don't know anything about this one going into it, and I refuse to look it up, but wouldn't it be hilarious if it was also a Breakout clone?
Honestly, when I was looking through the list and I saw tennis, I was like, that's just Pong, right? It has to just be Pong, but
we'll find out. All right, see you, everybody.
Goodbye.